This is a feature preview for our upcoming pipeline on-chain graph interpreter. The graph interpreter contract receives a pipeline graph and user-given inputs and runs that graph on-chain. You can save the graph on-chain and anyone will be able to reuse it with your inputs or their own inputs. You are now able to batch multiple transactions and do complex computations on chain data in a single transaction. Even more, executing a graph that was stored on-chain means that you now have a trustless atomic execution of logic. Until now, reading chain data or executing transactions based on previous on-chain results was done either fully off-chain or on-chain in custom-made wrapper smart contracts. The off-chain method requires trust in the executor and does not have atomicity, resulting in race conditions and front-running. The on-chain method is not scalable in general and requires developers to create custom smart contracts for every use case. Pipeline takes care of all the complex parts of creating graphs for trustless and atomic execution, so you can begin by visually creating your graph like before. This graph takes a product ID and an amount of Wei that we want to spend and returns the quantity of that product that we can buy with our Wei. Now we can choose to deploy our graph as a Solidity smart contract, or run it off-chain in JavaScript, or save it on-chain and execute it in our pipeline interpreter contract. This is how the stored on-chain graph data looks like, and it contains contract address, function signature, and information about our inputs and outputs for each node. We can save the graph data and run it from storage, or we can run the graph directly in the pipeline interpreter contract. And this is our result. It's 10 in hex format. If we look at the logs, this is what is sent to the pipeline interpreter contract. This is the graph data that I showed you previously. And these are the inputs, containing the packed inputs that we gave it here, and some other information that makes it easier for unpacking those inputs on-chain. The interpreter contract is currently deployed on Ropsten for testing purposes, and it will soon be made available in Pipeline as a feature. With Pipeline, we have demonstrated visual source code generation for executing Rust functions with JavaScript as glue, for creating Web3 dApps in JavaScript, for creating Solidity smart contracts. We have also demonstrated multiple types of pipeline graph interpreters for JavaScript and Node.js with WebAssembly support for Python, and now directly on an Ethereum chain by Graph Object or Graph ID. So stay tuned to see what is coming next for our pipeline operating system, PipeOS.